What is up, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be ranking the best units in Anime Last Stand as of the new solo leveling update. Let's get into it. Okay, I'm not going to waste any of your time. Here is the finished tier list. We're jumping straight into it on this one. And now I'm just going to kind of explain what the tier list is and why the units are where they are. So this is an overall meta tier list. This is not for just story mode or infinites. This is for any content in the game, and just my general opinion on the utility and really value of these units. So let's go ahead and get into the rankings. Or the tiers, sorry. We've got meta DPS, which of course is going to be very good units for damage. Next we've got meta hybrid, which are the best units for dealing with flying enemies. Next we've got meta support, and that's going to be any unit that really benefits your team in some way, and it's really good at just kind of supporting. Next we've got good, and good units are obviously good. They're not bad, but they are outclassed by the higher meta units on this list. Next we've got mid, and mid is going to be units that are by no means the worst in the game. They're still usable, and I'd recommend getting them for new players, but they are extremely outclassed by the meta units up here. And finally we've got the farms category, and I'm sure you know what that is, but if you don't, it is just a category for units that make money. They are ranked by their usefulness and how much money they make. With the tiers out of the way, we're going to get into the rankings now. So first, starting with the farms category, we've got Speedcart. I believe this is the best farm in the game because he makes the most amount of money for how much he costs. Next, we've got Idol. Idol is good for infinites because at later upgrade she has a range buff and she still makes good money. Then we've got the exotic version of Speedcart, which is pretty much a Speedcart for infinite modes. He costs more but can make more. And then we've got Beast, which is better than these two. These are all just kind of mid farms, but Beast has a wish ability which increases your base HP. And then these two are just kind of for beginners. Next we've got Genos. Next we've got mid, and we start with Genos. Genos is a hybrid cheap unit. His damage is just kind of lacking, but I still think he's very good for if you want to just kind of brainlessly farm any easy stages. So I'll throw him at the top of mid. Next we've got Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero can still be used as a cripple support because he becomes full AoE. So still good for a cripple, but there are better options. Same thing for Dark Flash, good for his fear passive, which slows enemies and makes them take a little bit of damage, but there are just better options. Then we've got Igris, or Crimson Commander, one of the newer units. He becomes a bleed full AoE hybrid unit, and he's pretty cheap, so he's good for beginning players, but his damage is really lacking compared to other options on this list. Next we've got Sung Jin Woo, same thing, his damage is lacking, and he's going to get a second evolution with the Part 2 solo leveling update, so I'd recommend getting him, but he's not very good. Next we've got Un-Evo Sukuna. This is a unit for beginners that they can still use to kind of deal with airs, but he's pretty bad compared to other options on this list. Then we've got Yami, or Dark Captain. He can still be used for his slow or just beginning damage, but it's really lacking compared to the new options. Next we've got the good tier with Flame Emperor. Flame Emperor is one of the newer units. He's actually pretty good, but there are better burn units. You can see he has the burn passive here. His damage is pretty good. He gets hybrid at pretty cheap, but there are better options. Next we've got Metal Knight. I know this is going to be pretty sad for some of you, but he's not very good. His damage is alright, and he is a good hybrid option, but there are better options up here. Next we've got Strongest Sorcerer Unmasked, or Gojo Evo. He has a time stop at max upgrade and can still be very good as a support, but he's not very good compared to the other time stops and other supports here. We've got Ice Ice Baby, a freeze unit, and there's pretty much just a better version of him higher up on the list, but he is a full AoE hybrid freeze. He's just a little bit expensive. Then we've got Mash. This unit can do decent starting damage, he's pretty cheap, and he does have slow on a few of his upgrades, so he still can be used, but he's getting a little outdated. Moving on to the first group of units that I believe are meta, the meta supports, we've got Dripnami Evo. Dripnami is just a cheap unit that is hybrid on placement and has Electrified. Electrified is a great passive for slowing down enemies. Next we've got Blue Admiral Evo. Blue Admiral Evo is freeze on placement. He is pretty much a better version of Ice Ice Baby, that becomes full AoE and hybrid at later upgrades. Next we've got Super Robot 12. She has fear similar to Dark Flash, but she is full AoE hybrid and does pretty good damage at later upgrades. Next we've got Garo. Garo is good for story mode because he's very cheap, he has hybrid on placement, cripple on placement, but his damage really falls off later in infinites. Next we've got Boa. Boa is good for her stun passive, she's very cheap, but she is only ground, so not as convenient for other units on this list. Next we've got Giga Chad. Giga Chad is a time stop unit. He is a 4 placement with a non-global cooldown time stop, so I think he is just a better time stop than Gojo Evo, so he is still pretty good if you need a time stop. Next we've got Shiny Wish Dragon. Shiny Wish Dragon is a full AoE hybrid cripple unit at later upgrades, so he's like a better version of Guitar Hero, and he even has an ability where he can bless your base with 1 million HP. Then we've got Lightning Queen. Lightning Queen does some pretty good damage. She's honestly less of a support than any of these units, but she has the Electrified passive. She's just a bit more expensive than Drip Nami. I still think she's a meta support though. Next we've got the meta hybrid unit, starting with Green Esper. I think she can also be a meta support. She's honestly just one of the best units in the game right now for clearing any stage, especially with the right trait. She's hybrid on placement and slow on placement, and does very good damage, and she's cheap. Next we've got Tachi. Tachi Evo is very good for hybrid damage. He has Black Flames passive, which can do a lot. He's just a little bit more expensive, but he is hybrid on placement. Next we've got Sukuna. Sukuna is also hybrid on placement with a damage over time effect as well. He does very good damage. He has a nuke ability. He's just a bit more expensive. Next we've got Garp. Garp is full AoE at later upgrades, and he is hybrid on placement. He's actually pretty good, his damage is pretty good, and he's very cheap. I'd say he's a very solid meta hybrid. Next we've got Golden Admiral. Golden Admiral is a very expensive unit, but on placement he is hybrid, he does good damage, and at later upgrades he gets the Cripple passive, which can kind of help with support. Next we've got Light Admiral War. Light Admiral War is just a cheap hybrid unit that does very good damage. And then finally we've got Bobak. Bobak is still good, he's still meta in my opinion, you can still use him for pretty much any stage. He won't clear it as well as some of the others though, and he's just a cheap, hybrid, slow unit, kind of similar to Tatsumaki. Tatsumaki is basically just a power creep, stronger version of him. Finally, we've got the meta DPS category, and I don't want to talk too much about them because if this were ranked by damage, it just looks something like this, so they're pretty much already just ranked by how much damage they do. But for the units with interesting mechanics, I'll talk about them. So Shanks is interesting because he has the Conqueror's passive at later upgrades, where he is going to stun enemies in his range. He's also full AoE and hybrid, and does really good damage. The best damage in the game with the right trait, actually. And we've got Heavenly Chat. Heavenly Chat is just cheap damage with a time stop at max upgrade. And we've got Saitama Evo. He's very expensive. He is a full AoE hybrid at later upgrades. His damage is very good, and he even has a nuke at final upgrade. Next we've got Chahei, the new banner unit. She is going to actually do more damage than Saitama when fully maxed out, because she is a 2 placement. She is very similar to him in that she is a hybrid full AoE unit at later upgrades. She doesn't have an ability though. Next we've got Gas Hunter, or Smoker. This unit is going to be similar to these, how he is going to be a full AoE hybrid unit, but he's going to be a multi-hit, and multi-hits are very strong. Next we have a Boros. Boros, strongest alien. He is going to be just a normal DPS unit. He's not a full AoE or anything, but he can be hybrid at later upgrades. His damage is just really good. Next we've got Genos, similar to Boros. He's not full AoE, his damage is just good, but he has the burn passive. Ichigo is pretty much a bleed version of Genos. He is just a very good damage unit, hybrid at later upgrades, and he's bleed. Next we've got Red Admiral. Red Admiral is a burn unit. He becomes full AoE and hybrid at later upgrades, and he's honestly not too expensive. Next we've got Toji. Toji is the first unit in the game to have the Hemorrhage passive, which is pretty much a better version of Bleed. He becomes full AoE and hybrid at later upgrades, and his damage is pretty good. And finally we've got Fused Warrior. Fused Warrior is a very good damage unit still. His damage is really good. He's just very expensive, and he is not a hybrid unit until like one of his last upgrades. He's so expensive to get there. He's not full AoE, so he's just not as strong as some of the other meta units, but he's still very good. And with that, I think I have explained everybody on this list. So again, this list is just an overall meta tier list. These are only the best units in the game. They're all pretty good, even these in the mid tier. They're still good for beginners. They're just outclassed by these up here. But yeah, this is just my general opinion of the game right now, these strongest units, and which ones you should use for what reasons. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. You probably have a lot of things you disagree about, so I'd like to hear them. But yeah, that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, maybe consider subscribing, because I upload content similar to this every day, and also live stream on weekends. But yeah, that's all I've got for you. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you in the next one, and have a great day.